Coming up on this episode of MSEB News, we interview Poteet AP Government students about democracy. We also take a look at what you pay for when you take the SAT and AP test. An interview with a teacher at the KEOM radio station. And then we interview an advanced academic college advisor with an interesting hobby of making board games. All this and more coming up on MSEB News.
Welcome to MSEB, live from the TEC studios.
Good afternoon, Mesquite ISD. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Damian Amaya.
And I'm Jalen Robinson, and you're watching MSEB Live, a show produced by MISD students, brought to you live from the TEC studios.
We will bring you the top stories throughout the district and take an inside look on what's happening in MISD. Let's get to our first story. While Mr. Hill is busy advising students on their pathway beyond high school, this academic college advisor also has a love for board games. Our field reporter Carlene Ota has our first story.
Meet Travis Hill. When he's not the advanced academic advisor at Mesquite High School, Hill spends his time doing what he loves, writing and making board games.
Hey, my name is Travis Hill, and I am the Advanced Academics Advisor here at Mesquite High School. About 12, 15 years ago, a friend of mine introduced me to what we call hobby board game, and it's all about like resources and exploration, and it just like kind of went to a deeper level than say Monopoly. And because of that, I just kind of fell into it, and I love playing it. I love the mental process of like thinking through board games, and like just having fun. And really, it ultimately just is all about sitting around with a group of friends and just having a good time together. So one of the cool things that I get to do is I get to write and edit rule books for board games. The reason why that's such a cool thing is because through that process, I get to take a document basically, and I get to have it make sense, because it's a technical document. And so what will happen is that it's everything from what components are in the game to the setup to all the individual rules about how game pieces move, and just putting it in a common language so that people can understand it. So I get to edit a lot of people's rule books, and so they'll look at me and they'll say, "Hey, Travis, we want you to edit this rule book for us," and I go, "Sure." They give me a copy of the game, and then I just work on it, make sure that it's streamlined and that it makes a whole lot of sense, and then at that point, they get it published, and it goes out into the world. I'm a freelance rulebook editor. I've worked on over 100 different board games so far. I probably work on somewhere between 25 to 30 board games a year. Some of those are super small board games, and some of them are large mass market board games that have come out. So yeah, I definitely get paid for it, because it does take a lot of time to do this. So whenever it comes to rules, it's easy to put in rules that make it more convoluted. So, for example, I've worked with people that want to be as detailed as possible. So whenever they say, roll some dice, you don't literally say, hey, in the rules you don't type out, you don't put in the rule book, grab the dice, enclose them in your hand, shake them, and then roll them. You don't say that. You don't have to write that. But I know people that have added in rules that are very similar to that. Shuffle the deck of cards, make sure they're facing the right way, put them all face down, and it's like, that's a little too granular. You don't necessarily need to do that. So part of my job is to get rid of some of those excess rules that don't really even need to be there, because people are smart, and if you're playing board games, you're gonna be a smart person, right? So it's a lot of it. Yeah, I'm in the process of making a couple different types of games, right? So I've designed both board games and role-playing games. So role-playing games, like the role-playing game that most people know is things like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that, right? But whenever it comes to designing games, I've done role-playing games, right? So for a couple of people, pen and paper, you read stuff out of a book, and you roll some dice and do some, role-playing, right? Then I've also done some small board game design. I actually have 2 games that are they're going to be set to be published later on this year and at the beginning of next year, but they're not out yet. So I have some that have been signed or in the works, but they're just not out quite yet. brought a bag of games that I have that I've worked on rulebook wise. I brought some games that I'm in the that I've made. So the game that I was talking about, Parts, that's at Barnes & Noble, and that's at Target. It's all about hiking. It's all about visiting the specific trails, the 50 national parks that are in the United States. So I was really fortunate to be able to work on this game. It's a nice, fun, light family game. But yeah, so this has been a good one. So I edited the rules on this one. This is the one that's way fun because you can just kind of walk through Target and go, hey, look at that! I did that thing right there. So that's a fun one. Another big one that has started to hit Barnes & Noble is a game called Welcome To. It's another good family style game. The interesting thing with this one is that it's actually what we call a roll and write game. So inside of this is a game that I've done rule books for. Is that inside of it there's actually it comes with this giant pad of paper. And so what happens is that in this game you actually use cards to figure out to randomize some stuff. But every single one of these is that you get to play it, right? And so you have this one piece of paper, you tear it off, and everybody has their own thing that they play, right? So you actually tear off, if there are 5 players, you tear off 5 sheets of paper, and you just kind of pass it out that way. So both of these are games that I've done the rulebook work for, Welcome To and Parks. I think the main goal for a player is to have fun. I really truly do. There are some people that are into board games to win, and they'll get super mad and frustrated if they don't. That is not me. My main goal is to sit around and have fun with other people.
Hill's admiration for board games has expanded his love and respect for them in a way that he hopes others will discover too. This is Carlene reporting for Mseb News.
Mr. Hill sure doesn't know a lot about board games, and we look forward to seeing more of his creations in the future. In our next story, we sat down with Mrs. Tharp, the KEOM teacher and radio personality, to see what students are learning about while working at a real radio station.
You're listening to 88.5 KEOM. I'm Chandra Tharp, and I wanted to let you know about the event that's coming up this weekend. My name is Chandra Tharp, and I have been the teacher at KEOM this is my 15th year. KEOM is a real radio station. We actually broadcast on 88.5 FM across the Dallas area, but we also are used as a learning laboratory for students of Mesquite ISD. So we have a lot of Mesquite ISD students that come to the station and they learn how to work at a real radio station. We prepare students to be on air by teaching them first how to speak the way they should speak for the radio. So we work on articulation and expression and just practice reading things like that. And then we also teach them how to do different kinds of reports. So they learn weather, traffic, and learn how to write those and then do those on the air as well. KEOM has benefited students mostly in their confidence in their speaking skills. Every student that has come through has said that they feel more confident in themselves when they're speaking. We've also had a lot of students that have gone through and made careers out of something in the field. So some students have gone on to be on the television or even behind the scenes on TV or radio. But we have a lot of students that get different opportunities. We have one in particular named Samantha, she was in our program for a couple of years, and she also got to be an intern for the summer, and then that has turned into a good part-time job for her.
My name is Samantha, and I am a part-time employee with KEOM, so I do on-air work, I help out with the classes, and I also manage a show called On the Job. The biggest takeaway I had from Ms. Tharp and KEOM as a class is that you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone, and you have to be willing to work on things that maybe you're not as good at when you walk in. You have to be willing to identify and work on your strengths and weaknesses in order to be the best student you can be and really grow from the class.
Students can be a part of the program by filling out a questionnaire first. We have it on our website. It's keom.fm/student-program. And they can fill out the application there. Then there is a little process where they actually have to try out by just coming in and recording themselves reading a script. And then we just let people know. We're hoping that future students can come in and just learn more about how radio works, using their voice, and in the future we're hoping to get more and more students involved in doing podcasting and things like that.
Many students have been impacted in a positive way, whether it's a step in a career field or improvement in speaking skills. There is always something to gain in KEOM. I'm Yaneli, and back to the studio.
I have always wondered what goes on behind the scenes at a radio station. We are lucky that Mesquite ISD offers this great program. Millions of students across the country take the SAT and AP tests each year to help with their chances of getting into a good college. Our next story explores what is behind the finances of those tests.
Hello, this is Maya Youngblood from Mseb News. College Board finances, what are you paying for? College Board is responsible for the SAT as well as the AP tests. These tests are tests you have to take in order to get college credit and pass your classes, as well as getting into college as a whole. Unlike AP, which is a choice to take the class, you have to take the SAT. USnews.com says that 95% of colleges say they either require the SAT or ACT for admission into the college. With all that money, according to website Total Registration Net, in 2008, College Board had $1,152,2026,448 in cash and investments. That's a lot for a so-called non-profit company. But where does it go? We go to Miss Charles, a Horn High School teacher, for the answer.
What I can tell you is the majority of the money that goes toward the cost of the exam is spent on people. It's spent on people scoring the exams. It's spent on people, specifically like myself, who are hired by College Board to go and teach other teachers how to be AP teachers. So that's where that comes from. College Board also has waivers and scholarships available. So for example, the AP exam went up $1, and when she tested it was $94. Now it's $95. But students who receive free or reduced lunch can get their exams as far down as $33. And Title I schools also receive additional funds where the entire exam can be covered by the school through other grants that come from College Board and other state grants available.
There is not much we can change about this unless either colleges stop requiring tests for admission or College Board lowers the price of the SAT to a more reasonable price. Now, as previously stated, the price can be lowered if you are under free and reduced lunch or are at a Title I school, where it could be covered all for you. This has been Maya Youngblood from Mseb News, and now you know what you're paying for.
2020 is definitely a year for the history books. Our final story is an interview with some Poteet High School AP Government students regarding their thoughts on democracy and our recent 2020 presidential election.
The American democracy has been a hot topic of debate ever since its creation. It ties closely to the lives of all American citizens and is thus one of the most important things young people can be educated on. We asked a group of AP Government students from Poteet High School their thoughts on democracy and our 2020 election. What are your thoughts on the 2020 election?
I don't like how disputed they are, just because of how we should have faith in our election. I do believe that Biden did win. And the fact that a lot of people still dispute it, even to this day, makes us worry about how future elections will turn out.
Do you think our democracy is fair?
No, I think basically that the more money you have, the more power you have, which is kind of, I think, defeats the whole purpose of our whole ideals of America, us being a place where anybody can come and make themselves a home. But the more money you have, it seems like the higher end positions of power you get, which isn't fair.
What would you say is our democracy's biggest faults?
Definitely giving all the power to the politicians when none of it to the people. I feel like we're the ones that are voting them in, but they're not keeping their promises for our votes. And like we keep putting them on pedestals when they really shouldn't be. So yeah, definitely, we should definitely give the power back to the people, the voters, and take some of the power away from the politicians.
How would our government be different if you ran it?
As much as I say I'm a leader, that big of a group is kind of scary. So I don't think it'd be perfect. If anything, I'd focus more on representation of all people rather than, I feel like our government focuses more on like the best interests and like kind of it's either all or nothing, or like they feel as if they cover enough people instead of all people, they're all right. I figure I'd focus more on reaching the needs of people who aren't really focused on. And maybe I'd make things a little better.
It seems like we have a lot of students that might have a future in politics. It's great that we are in a free society that allows us to learn, discuss, and share opinions about how our government is ran.
That wraps up this edition of MSEB News. For more information on today's stories, please visit MSEB YouTube channel, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook pages. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jalen Robinson.
And I'm Damian Amaya. Until next time,
Stay classy, Mesquite.
This has been a presentation of MSEB, Mesquite Student Entertainment and Broadcasting, in association with the Mesquite Independent School District Career and Technical Education Department.